To me, acting is a sign of hope. It says that life is not done, that we believe the world can change, the world can be better, that no matter what the headlines say, we're going to persevere and we're going to continue on because we believe that love is stronger than hate, that light is stronger than darkness, that hope is more powerful than despair. And so we live into that with Listen, Learn, Act. That's our shameless plug number one, is we want you to be part of our movement. Whether you're part of another group, we have a great group from all peoples here tonight, from all different parts of the city. We love y'all. We want to partner with y'all, join together in this work of love. So that's plug number one. Plug number two is Listen, Learn, Act is sponsoring a 2-week class led by Corey Lockhart that is very important for me and others to be part of, and that is how to have conversations that are difficult with people on the other side of the issues when it comes to race and politics and that. How can we be faithful in what we feel and believe without getting into the arguing and all just the ugliness of it? How can we do that in the most hopeful and loving way possible? I'm really grateful that Corey's agreed to lead that. Thank you all for being here. Your presence, this tremendous presence, gives me hope, because we're not just here to entertain ourselves. We're here to listen, we're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to have our minds expanded so that we can see more clearly and be part of this work of love in all the ways that we possibly can. I love introducing my colleague, Di Kerrigan, who is one of the founders of ListenLearnAct.org and one of my co-laborers in this movement.
Yay,
Di Kerrigan.
Hey, my family, I want everyone to follow a Reverend because he is so charismatic, and I want to thank everybody. Geez, I'm just thrilled to see how many people came tonight just for this very important thing for us to just try, and that is really what this is all about. I want to thank St. Agnes for letting us use this gorgeous place, and and I really like to thank Sheila Murphy for making all of this work possible. Thank you. And also thanks to the Earth and Spirit Center and Lean Into Louisville, who have partnered with ListenLearnAct.org to start these community conversations and have these gatherings. So we're very, very delighted with that. Most of all, I want to thank our guest, Lamont Collins. Lamont, I know you've been all over this city for the past, I don't know how many weeks, but I know for sure these past 4 or 5 days you've been super, super busy. I was at the, I did the Run for Justice down at the Sports and Learning Center, and I'm out there on the track, and all of a sudden Lamont is speaking. And then I heard that you spoke somewhere else that same day. So very, very busy. We are very, very thrilled that he's here with us tonight. And if you don't know Lamont, I'd like to give you a little background. He is a lifelong Louisvillian who has always had a passion for justice. As a child, he took a deep interest in collecting and ultimately amassed a large number of African and African American artifacts, which he used to create a makeshift museum in his basement. And upon hearing of another such museum in California, he was inspired to start his own. Roots 101 opened in 2019 and has since collected many other items, including all of the Breonna Taylor memorabilia from the protest at Injustice Square. Lamont named the museum Roots 101 because in higher education, the first course in a subject is always 101. This is foundational because it's a place to begin learning about African American experiences. And most importantly, Lamont says it is a place for healing. The museum has been named on Architectural Digest's 2020 list of the top 20 museums worldwide. It was named one of USA Today's top 10 best new attractions in 2021, and it was a recipient of the 2021 Ford Foundation grant. It's located at 124 North 1st Street, and the museum seeks to make all of us better ancestors through exhibits that raise awareness of the African American experience, from slavery to freedom. Touring the museum is a powerful experience as Lamont allows you to interact with the past in a visceral, unforgettable way. So we encourage all of you to visit if you haven't yet, and ask for a tour. Ask for Lamont if you can. So without further ado, please welcome Lamont Collins.
Good evening. I've been at the dentist all morning, so I got a few Oxycontins in me, so I'm going to hold on as much as I can hold on, right? I feel good, I just don't know if I can keep going. But anyway, you know, Roots 101, African American Museum, when Lord blessed me with that vision, it was to change the community. I call it 101 because in higher education, first class you take is a 101. When you come through the museum, I believe you come in one way and you will definitely leave another. I challenge everyone to the museum to be better, become better ancestors. That means if you become better than your parents and your parents and your parents before that, we're all going to be better because this world needs to be better. I challenge young black kids, young white kids, that this world is better together. No matter how this world tries to deny it, the Lever Beaver family is gone. Now there's Willie at the table. There's Ricardo at the table, and there's Lucy at the table. There's Becky at the table. And because of that, we learn to love people that don't look like us. And we learn to love people that we wouldn't go out the door before we understand their family. And it wasn't family because of color, it's family because of the spirit and the culture and the character of the person that's sitting at that table. We have to come to the realization that it's not really about color. It's about the heart and compassion of a person. We sit here right now at a church, which should be the foundation of faith, love, and compassion. But instead, on Sunday morning, it's the most segregated part of our country. Think about that. The most segregated part of our country. But today, we're going to do several things. We just talk. And I answer a lot of questions or whatever. Before we ever start, let me say this to my white allies. Be honest. Have you ever said you don't see color? Come on, raise your hands up. Have you ever said, I don't see color? Probably, maybe. I think most of you have. Everything we do, we see color. Now the question is the color, what do you see, the character of the person? That's a different issue. But to tell me you don't see color, we can't even start a conversation. Do you agree with that? So for the sake of the agreement, do you see color? Yes. Now the question is, you see color, what happens when you see that color you see? If you don't see the character of the person, the love and the compassion of the person, that's the problem. Let me show you something else. And I just did this. Billboard or chalkboard, whatever, right? Right? Yeah. What color is this chalkboard? White. The foundation of America is what? When they came to America, it was to serve. Now you can say it loud. Okay, so what we're going to say is that if the foundation of this country is this, and we know it is this, then whatever we add to that board is an add-on to the vision. You catch what I'm saying? It was designed to be just what it was, just what it is. So when we add on, whatever we add on to it is what we add into the basis of America. Be honest about it. You know, people walk around and talk about white privilege. Okay. If it's all this, would not be privilege in that? It's not that everybody makes it because you're white. It's not that everybody white's millionaires, by no means. But it's a good opportunity that you have the better opportunity than one that didn't come on this board. You making sense? So let me tell you something. I always like bringing up different analogies how to think about race. I had a man call me one day, and Corey knows this story. I tell it all the time. I was at the museum, and I don't give much hate and stuff at the museum. I've never gotten a hate call yet at the museum, which tells me we're telling the story some kind of way where people understand it's not about hate. It's not about racism. It's not about racist. It's not about any of those things. But our gentleman called me. Assume he's a white gentleman, about 62 years old or so. And he says to me, he says, Mr. Lamont, or Mr. Collins. Maybe he didn't call me Mr. He just said Collins. He said, I got a problem. He said, the problem is, I'm tired of you calling people racist, and I'm tired of people saying this all the time. I said, wait a minute. I don't know you. He says, well, I know you're talking about racists at the museum. I said, I don't think I got an exhibit at the museum called racist. I don't. Do I, Corey? I don't think so. So he says, well, I hate what you're doing. I said, okay. I said, but let me tell you something. Let me give you an example. If you hurt because people are calling you racist at 63 years old, think how I felt when I was 6 years old being called nigger. Quiet. Because he never thought of the pain and the depth that we went through for a word that carried us for 400 years. But he was hurt because somebody called him a racist. That's the mindset that we're dealing in America. That he just assumes to be angry for that word. But I have to love with the word I heard when I was 6 years old. Think about that. Think about any kid you have in your family dealt with racism at 6 years old. No. That's the passion and things we deal with as black people. We talk about Juneteenth. Everybody tired of put their hand up. You tired of hearing about Juneteenth? Huh? Tired of hearing about Juneteenth? I'm tired of it. Let me tell you why I'm tired of it. Can I give you a deeper learning of Juneteenth? It's a national holiday. Okay, but let's talk about it. Juneteenth, 1863, Abraham Lincoln needed to defeat the South. So here's what he did. He put a war measure that allowed black people that were enslaved to go fight for the South. So black people free all the time to go fight for the life. So they go fight. Only reason he took them because he wanted to be out. He wanted to outman and he wanted to outman and out-weaponize the South in the process. So we went just to fight. So we fought. Won. The Emancipation Proclamation didn't guarantee black people anything because white people come take them back when they want to take them back anyway. But they were used to fight to win the war. Outmanned and outgunned. Juneteenth. And then on Juneteenth, we won, America won, and they were free. Just free. And think what I'm about to tell you. Black soldiers, white soldiers marched into Galveston, Texas 2.5 years later. Think about this. Black soldiers and white soldiers walking down the muddy roads of Texas, and black slaves are in the field. And they see these soldiers waving at them and tell them they're free. Could you imagine the celebration to hearing I'm free? But this is what Juneteenth don't tell you. Free to do what? Yeah. Free to do what? Again, which is the history of America. Free to do what? So what happened is, these black people are free. They're in the middle of a field. They look at each other, they rejoice, they have fun, they're free. Even their forefathers wasn't free. They came from Africa not free, but they're free this day. And let's say it gets about 7 o'clock at night. You ever been in the country at night? Gets so dark you can't see your hand before you. And then they realize they're not on their land. And the landowner owns the land they're on. Only thing they were free to do was breathe. Think about that. We're celebrating a day that we were only free to breathe. But all of a sudden, it's the greatest national holiday in the world. And we're making a national holiday, but pump your brakes. The same liberations, the same problems, the same things we go through in 1800, we're dealing with in 2022. Think about that. A holiday we're celebrating, but we're still not liberated in this country. But somebody thought it'd be great to make it a holiday. Okay. If I got a job, it might make a difference. If I got health care, it might make a difference. But just to give me a day in a country that has days, 365 days a year. And then think about this. I give you Juneteenth, my teeth now. I'll tell you I'm glad. I give you that day. but now I'm taking away in the school system at the same time. National holiday on one end, and on the other end, every state's trying to stop the history to be told. Think about that. But I'm supposed to be happy because you gave me Juneteenth. I'm supposed to be happy when I look at my child and say, look, I can't teach you history because they say we can't teach it anymore. Well, how are you going to teach Juneteenth? All of a sudden you said you can't teach history. Think about that. Then we go through Juneteenth, and like I said, a lot of things that happened yesterday today. If I said we only had the right to breathe, let's talk about just the right to breathe. We're still dealing with the right to breathe in 2022. Ask George Floyd. Ask George Floyd when he's saying, I can't breathe. Ask Breonna Taylor when she woke up in the morning and was shot by the police. Can she breathe? Ask David McAtee as he's protecting his business. Can he breathe? 2022 and still dealing with just breathing. Then we talk about the military. Join the military lady back there. Black people have fought in the military since the time we've been in America. Fought when we were not free, but still fought for this country to be free. Come back from World War II, where they served greatly in the country. They give them the GI Bill. Black soldiers get to buy houses like white soldiers. And then they redline where they could buy the houses at. The wealth that black America lost even in the battle of what America supposed to gave them for free. You with me so far? 2022. But we still can go back a little bit. The Great Deal. It's a great deal, Roosevelt's deal. Was it the Great Deal? Was it called a Great Deal? What was the history? Is it the Great Deal or the New Deal? Wow, I didn't pass that part. Okay, the New Deal. So we get the New Deal. New Deal was to everybody have a turkey or a pot or something in the pot to eat. But even in the New Deal, what happens? For Social Security, black people are working as domestics. They're not getting a paycheck. For generations of black families robbed of any money they made to get anything paid back by this government. It's America. That's why it's so important for us to understand our history. So when people just say, oh, everybody's free, everybody's got equal opportunity, just not true. Just not true. And if we can't start teaching it in churches, a place where we're supposed to learn compassion and love and God's and Jesus' will, when can we ever learn it? When does churches start representing the political body of a party? I don't even want to get into that. Don't even want to get into that. But anyway, I was asked today to come speak. And I think the coolest way to speak is to ask questions. I had a gentleman in the museum yesterday, white gentleman, about 30 years old, executive in one of the downtown companies. And he's in Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house is a room I have at the museum that tells the story of Big Mama. She's the one that told us our story and told us our glory and told us that we could be something better than what America was telling us. And Big Mama's house, she would have pictures of people in the family that have done great things. And you know, the thing about Big Mama's house, it's similar in the poor white communities in the Appalachian Mountains. They told the same story. Uncle Jack worked in the coal mine. He was a supervisor. Told the same story. But anyway, we was in Big Mama's house. This gentleman about 30 years old. And I had a picture of white Jesus. I always had a picture of white Jesus because we grew up with a picture of white Jesus. He was on the countertop. He represented all our faith and the reality of who we were. You know, it wasn't nothing. That's just the way it was. So this gentleman sees it and he says, Lamont, why do black people have white Jesus in the house? This guy's 30 years old. Because that's a Jesus they told us to believe in. That's a Jesus that took us from everywhere we went. Big Mama told us, love white Jesus. Now, what we didn't know is white Jesus was a Hebrew. Yeah. Blonde hair and blue eyes. I mean, I ain't seen many Hebrews like that. But that's what we grew up with. But even this young man, he had no conception. What we believe is what we were told. He couldn't wrap around that. And then he asked another question. I wish he had stopped asking. So then he asked me, he says, does having a white Santa Claus matter? Wow. You want me to answer that one too? He said, does a white Santa Claus matter? Well, I think anything matters if our children can't get an image of what it's about. Our black fathers were in the, well, I want to talk about Santa. I don't know who's in the room, Santa real or not, but it was our fathers that went out and bought the packages back home, but didn't get a knowledge for it. White Santa did. Can you imagine being a black man, 1920s or 1930s, and everything you brought home was credited to the white man you had to fight with every day? Think of the mind trip to that. And then you couldn't turn and tell your kid, I'm Santa. Because see, he could never even envision you being Santa. But just a black man going through that. You never experienced that. But that's what America made us do. We're not even talking about the Easter Bunny, because I don't think they have a chocolate Easter Bunny. So that's a non-issue there. You're off the hook on the Easter Bunny. But basically what I'm trying to tell you is that history is rewarding. And the sad thing about America, we talk about knowledge. We use knowledge as the key to everything. And then let's talk about today's museums. Now, this is a little personal to me. Museums 400 years old telling the wrong story, but get millions of dollars every year. I tell the right story and can't get $1. Think about that. Think about right now they're having its city budget right now. You think Roots 101 is in that city budget? With all the national accolades, all the things we've done, all the kids we've brought in the museum, all the things we've done to change, and we're not even in your budget. They vote Thursday, so if you want to call them, call them. But we're not even in the budget. But when I talk about museums and the story of museums, think about, for 400 years they told the wrong story and narrative of black people, how we contribute to this country. I always say with the bulldozers for bulldozers, jackhammers for jackhammers, and engineers before engineering degrees, which means what? We built this place. When kids come here, I tell them that we're descendants of kings and queens that were enslaved in America. I never heard that as a kid. I never heard I was a descendant of a king. Imagine if I heard that when I was 5 or 6 years old. I'll walk different, I'll talk different. You just don't understand the damage they've done to our community by racism and supremacy. And when you come to Roots, the great thing about Roots, I blow the supremacy right off the building. First thing you come and you see artwork done by Africans back in the 14th and 15th century. Artwork of bronze work that they could not do any other country but Africa. And you walk through all the things that we created, and then I got a place that says, welcome to America. And I put chains on you, 400-year chains from Ghana. And I say, welcome to America. That don't even add up, does it? Because in America now you're 3/5 human. That was the justification to get you here. But everything you saw before you came here showed that can't be true. They had to be mathematicians. They had to be engineers to create the things they did. But in America, you're 3/5 human. Then I have a Liberty Bell. And I rang the Liberty Bell. Because we all heard the story of the Liberty Bell, right? Brotherly love, crack on the bell. It never was the crack in the bell. It was the crack of the foundation of America. Yes. So if we talk the foundation crack, why do we need the bell? How much better would it be telling the truth to what we're doing? Okay, any questions? I'm ready. Why with partners? Yes.
Why aren't you in our budget? Is there?
Well, it doesn't take anything. I mean, I've submitted it. I've given a budget behind it. But what I understand is every particular alderman has their own push for different things. My councilman, Ja'Cory Arthur, has been very supportive of the museum, but not in the sense of getting dollars. So I just need people to get on the phone. Let's start it right now. I need to get on the phone and call and say why Roots 101 is not in the budget.
Did you call Ja'Cory or did you call me?
You call Ja'Cory and Mary. You give them both. and I talked to the mayor a couple of days ago, and the mayor has always been very supportive of the museum. But here's what I say about that. Don't call me a treasure if you're not giving anything to the treasure chest. You know, Louisville tourism, everybody. Roots, roots, roots. But if roots can't survive, it won't be a roots. And then think about this. And I think about it sometimes, but I trust God. I always say when I started the museum, I did it faith over financing. Because that's the black way. That's the black community. That's what we learned when we was children, that we'll never have enough. But we trust God in the process. So it's always faith over finance. And it's still faith over finance. So we'll keep doing it. We'll keep moving. But here's what I know for sure. In the 2 years we've done this, we've attached so many people in this community that it'll be interesting to me what happens to this community if we did have to go out the door. I don't think this community is ready for that. Because I think we've made that much influence in this community that we should be part of the fabric of this community and dollars to go with it. And I honestly believe that. And everybody in the museum, would you agree with that? Well, that's $100 right there. Any more questions or more?
This isn't about the museum, but I'm not sure this will really help. Last Thursday night on CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell. Last Thursday night on CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell, there was a clip about Louisville and the Louisville Six. At the beginning of that clip, Nora O'Donnell said that Louisville was one of the most segregated cities in the United States.
It's the 5th most segregated city in the United States.
It's still like the first, even being the 5th, it's horrifying to me.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out and sort of, get verification but it made me very sad.
Yeah, it's true. And those people are not from Louisville. And I'm from Louisville, born and raised. I haven't been here 100 years, but I've been here a pretty long time. At one time, the West End was predominantly white. People don't realize that. It was a white community, white doctors, white lawyers, Jewish community, white everything. I'll tell you how white it was. Had 2 golf courses in the neighborhood. Unheard of, anywhere. 2 major golf courses, Shawnee, Cherokee, and a dude ranch in the middle where you could ride horses in downtown West End. You just heard what I said, the resources that was there. And what happened after the riot, and you talk about the 6 that were locked up during the riot, and many of them still living, Medford Reed still living.
They said that it wasn't a riot really, it was claimed to be a riot.
Well, yeah, but I understand, yeah. But it got pretty devastating, whatever they want to call it. So, things got tore up. And I remember when I was a kid, they had like Hill Brothers Shoe Store, 4th Street. I mean, it was a bustling city. Am I right? Yeah. So those live there? And I remember going down to the skating rink. Matter of fact, there's a skating rink there too. Skating rink, horse thing, and 2 Fountain Fair amusement park. All in the west end of Louisville. But when the riot happened, white flight happened. Everybody left. And in the white flight, not just white people left, the Jewish community left too. Because they were white Jews, I guess. So they left too. So every resources that we had in that community all left in a snap of a finger. But it wasn't so much that the people left, it was the businesses left. Even if you talk about the past to the future, look at the West End today. Business is gone. They're going to E-Town. They're going to Eminence. They're building battery plants everywhere else. But in the area, they said they need most resources. Only jobs you get in those areas are service jobs. So they're building all these houses, affordable housing, and surrounding with neighborhood for service jobs. So what are the chances of even holding those houses if the economy went down? All the jobs, $30, $40 an hour, are all going where? To the country. And people going, oh, I didn't know. Yeah, you knew it. They're going to E-Town, Hazard, all the things that the coal producers lost years ago. The resources are going back. So what changes in the Western Louisville other than putting up some affordable housing that's financed by people that don't look like them? Still making money. So the city has a long way to go. And then we asked them about putting a plant in the west end of Louisville. They said they landlocked. We can't do it. It's landlocked. Come on, man. How you going to be landlocked? Yeah, build less houses and put up more businesses. But even when we had business, you got to remember, still was corrupt in the sense that we had acid oil, we had pollution within the city. There was hazards in what we went through, even in the city, that people still haven't got compensated today. The same land that was bad 5 years ago, all of a sudden is good enough to build on. Explain that to me. And if they build on it, who's living on it? We are. So the slates are not clean. Even in Louisville, it's not clean. And it is the 5th most segregated city in the country. And that was by design. And we have to accept that it's by design. But we have to challenge what we do from this point on. Because it's, like I said, becoming better ancestors. We're leaving it for somebody else. But what I tell everybody now is that my biggest challenge is making sure I do right by my descendants. So I move from ancestors to descendants. Because if I have nothing to leave my descendants, what do I leave them? So you can't get caught in the past without teaching the future. And now we're getting caught in, ooh, I heard about slavery. Ooh, okay, let's talk about now. The same thing's going on from slavery to now. So don't get caught on the bus trip. There's so much work we still have to do. Any more questions? I'm good as long as the oxycodone don't kick in. What you got? Go ahead.
Yeah. The wealth gap.
Oh.
There's something like 6 to 1 or one that I mean, that's a huge gap.
Mm-hmm.
Black, white family. That seems like just totally overwhelming. How do you even get to make a dent in that?
Well, I think you make a dent by giving opportunities to those communities that haven't had opportunities. Generationally, how we can do it, it's a long haul. But one way we can do it is jobs that pay premium jobs. But when we keep service jobs at $15 and $14 an hour and think that's going to really impact the community, come on, we know better than that. And then the wealth gap started from the time, like I said, when we talk about GI Bill. Even when the soldiers had an opportunity from the government to buy homes, they were earmarked to certain areas of town. And historically, black people were always given flood zones. Most black neighborhoods was built in flood zones. So even though they gave you the land, they didn't give you the best land. And generational people still living on that flood zone sometimes can't get insurance. Now, if they get insurance, they cancel every time it floods. A lot of homes in the West End still can't get homeowners insurance. People don't think about that. There's never a question of getting homeowners in your neighborhood. But in the West End, if it's 2 border houses beside a house, they don't want to give that person insurance. Think about that. Because there's 2 houses bordered beside me, insurance company's going to say, I'm not going to insure your house because that one might go on fire. Come on, is that really that person's problem when they're paying insurance? I guarantee it doesn't happen anywhere else. You know, and we talk about, let's y'all want to dig a little deeper? Okay, let's talk about violence in the community. You know, and there's a lot of violence. Don't get me wrong, people are dying everywhere. But every time people die in Louisville, they don't die in the West End of Louisville. Don't think some guy in North Hardin, Kentucky didn't get shot last night. That's not in the paper. Don't think that his house didn't get ran up by policemen and marshals and shot up. It happens everywhere. But the illusion is that it only happens in black neighborhoods. And that's a fallacy. You know, we got to clean it up. No doubt. We have responsibility and accountability, but you need to show that camera somewhere else too. Because you know in your family, you got some people that's pretty damn corrupt that ain't never been on TV. So anyway, like I said, I was born and raised in Louisville. I'll give you a quick snapshot. I used to come play against St. Agnes and St. Rayfield and all the little parochial schools during the YMCA times when they played us in the Y, and then they played their own league. And my parents, my dad was like, I always say he was just, I'm not afraid to fail because he was never afraid to fail. So he was like one of the first black guys that did drag racing. We go out to the drag strip, Oldham County, Fern Creek, and all those, Cedar Creek, and we would race. He would win, right? And the white guys didn't want to give him a trophy, but he made sure he got his trophy before he left. We'd be the only black family there. So we were always put in situations that it was how we reacted to whatever we did. But the reason he moved to all white neighborhood, here's his idea when we was little kids. We lived on 16th and Broadway. He would get in a car. He had a brand new car because he worked at Ford, one of the first black supervisors. And we would drive all over the city. Newburgh, Prospect, just wherever new subdivisions were going. And he would tell us in the back seat, we're sleepy, we won't go home and everything. We're going to live in this neighborhood. Because he wanted us to know we could live anywhere in Louisville. And then in 1968, we went over to Baxter Manor and bought a home on Baxter Manor Lane, right across from Baxter Manor Elementary. And then I always say he dropped me behind enemy lines. I'll drop the hell out of us, you know. And when I say drop, what I mean is that we moved in the neighborhood, young black kids, 7, 8 years old, to navigate whatever's going on at that time. And your parents went to work every day. Oh yeah, that's right. They didn't have endowments and stuff. So we'll be in the neighborhood dealing with every little redneck that came by, and then every good little kid that came by. But we had to deal with it. And what happened is you go home when your mom gets home from work, and she asks you what happened for the day, and she would ask me a question. And what she made me really instilled me to be who I am now, because she would say, "What did you say?" I always would reply, "What did you say?" Because it meant more to her for me to reply intelligent to anything someone said to me, with compassion, with hope, and all. She's still 8, 9 years old now, because we were dropped behind enemy lines. Now I had a brother that was totally different. He navigated all the way through. He's medical school, law school, medical school, and he was like a fish in water, man. He loved that thing. But for instance, like, I'll give you one more story. You ready to go?
No, I want to make sure your microphone's on.
Oh, okay.
Take that one.
Okay, cool. I'll give you another story. This is cool. And I'm 7, 8 years old. No, I'm 8 years old. Everybody remember Seneca High School and had the YMCA and all that? I used to play in the Seneca League over there. And I had a brother that was 2 years older than me. He just fell in cotton when he moved out there. He loved it. He was listening to Three Dog Night and Creedence Clearwater Survivor. Man, he was happy. And I'm like, where's James Brown? I'm going like, because there used to be a time WLU went off the air like 5 o'clock. So I got to listen to Johnny Cash and all. No, I wasn't ready for that. So we're in the neighborhood and I'm listening to Johnny, all that stuff. Midnight. Eli. What's that? Eli's Coming. 3 Dog Night. Oh God, I remember like yesterday. Anyway, so my brother one day, just tell you just small things. His football coach. I'm not going to say his name because he's passed away, but he was a prominent name in Louisville. And the football coach took all the kids to home to go to, spend the night. And coach, I'm going to say his name, I know him. Anyway, so all these kids were downstairs. And what he told the kids was, now I'm 8, 9 years old. He told all the kids, he just had to tell them. They had kicked one black kid off the team. And he says, there's good niggas and bad niggas. You hear what I said? Good niggas and bad niggas. And it didn't faze my brother 1 minute. No, he just thought he was a good nigga. he was good with it. He was good with it. So he comes home. So I guess he's 9, he's 10, whatever. I'm 8, and he tells a story. I'm watching Wilt Chamberlain and everybody about that time. I'm pretty radical, even 8 years old. So he says that story about good niggas and bad niggas, and something just didn't register me. That anybody that was your coach was dividing people up that way. Just didn't sit. So like the bad little brother, I go up the step and tell my mom. I said, Mom, Ted said, Coach so-and-so said there was good niggas and bad niggas. And I don't want to go over Coach Kern's house. Ooh, I said his name. I said, I don't want to go over Coach Kern's house. Not today, not tomorrow. I think I might have heard Bull Connor say, not today, not tomorrow, not forever, right? So I repeated that same thing. I don't want to go. And my mother, she looked at me and she said, no, I don't expect you to go. So I had a conversation with my brother, go downstairs, talk to him. And no matter what we said to him, he could not see the problem with somebody saying good niggas and bad niggas. And if he couldn't see it, on his way to be a doctor one day, how many kids never got it either? But just the analogy, good niggas, bad niggas. And like I said, I was 8 years old. So as a whole, Louisville's been a great experience for me. Even I went to Fern Creek High School. Everybody know Fern Creek? Fern Creek, I'm in their Hall of Fame out there, Sports Hall of Fame. And one of the greatest things about Fern Creek was, busing was going on. When I was at first year of busing, before we went there, we had moved into a neighborhood called Montclair. I don't know if anybody know Montclair. Montclair is right off Breckenridge Lane, built by black contractors, black doctors, and black lawyers. In Montclair, we had Muhammad Ali's mom. We had Jimmy Ellis up the street. So we had 2 heavyweight champs in our neighborhood. Right? We had Dr. Fraser, Dr. Ellis. We had black professors, all that in this. This neighborhood was all that. So we moved in that neighborhood, so I got to see something different. So every derby, Mr. Coleman used to be administrator, would do a party on his house. And we would go to the party, and these black professionals would come in with their college rings from Michigan, college rings from UCLA, college rings from Harvard. Unbelievable. And every black kid, come here. And they just flashed the ring, wouldn't say nothing. Letting you know there's opportunities. A different mindset, driving Audis and Mercedes that they weren't driving in 68 unless they were coming from the north. I got to see that. I got to see Muhammad Ali come in and ride our mini bikes. Jimmy Ellis, who was a champion down the street. Here's how Jimmy Ellis was. I don't know if y'all remember Jimmy Ellis. One of the most Christian men in the world. Oh, he'll be back doing a gospel concert, asking kids to come. So Montclair was just unbelievable. So my life in Louisville has been a fabric of every community here. Smoketown, I was born in Smoketown. My grandmother had a beauty shop, Smoketown. My grandfather helped start Continental National Bank, which was the first black bank. So, never rich, but never poor. And my father never quit in anything he did. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Any more questions?
Hi, Mr. Collins. I made a terrifying discovery a few years ago doing family history research that my family are descendants of enslavers here in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an experience that's much more common for white people here than, if it's anything like my family, it's just a bit of hidden history that nobody talked about, and it just kind of got erased from the record. You talk so much about being a good ancestor. I wondered what you might say to other descendants of enslavers and how we might be good ancestors too.
Well, good. First, write a check. we can make up for all of that. I'm just kidding. But anyway, not kidding. But anyway, that's true. Because, Kentucky was it wasn't just tobacco. They breeded slaves in Kentucky. Yeah. They actually breeded out Oldham County. Other farms had big breeding farms. That's how the words going down river, up river, down river, came from Kentucky. Because they would take the slaves down to the river and ship them to slavery somewhere else. So to say to a family that has a history of that, here's what I say to white people. I always say my job is to re-educate white America, educate black America. If I re-educate white America, then we're going somewhere to it. And here's what I mean by that. I can't expect you to have a guilt trip and take a guilt trip to something you never controlled. If this is the world we lived in, every Sunday morning they told you I was an animal, and your family moved for generations knowing that or thinking that, that's on America, not you. That's on America's educational system and everything about us in America. So I don't expect white people to take a guilt trip. But here's what I do expect, is that you open your mind to the things and the compensation that people did not get because of families like yours. And how, I don't believe in the word reparations, but I do believe in compensation. Because everybody in this room has been compensated through insurance somewhere in your families. Used to be a time when black people couldn't even get insurance. And if they did get insurance, it was penny insurance that paid at the door. But this generation, white generations from years have been compensated for losses, but not black people. So like I said, I'm not in reparations, but I'm damn into compensation. That some way, somehow, we can make this right for all the wrongs that have been done to black people in this country. And I stand on that. But I'm not saying, you know, James Brown used to say a song, open the door and I get it myself. Just open the door, I get it. Just give us the opportunity to go through the door. That's the problem. The problem is getting through the door. Think about Louisville. Louisville has moved light years in 2 years because of the death of Breonna Taylor. One person's death has moved this city. That's sad. And you give that another year and it won't matter either. But we got to get better than that. Got to get better than that. Anything else? Go ahead.
You know I'm not going to let you out of here.
All right, Joe.
Can I give her the microphone?
Yeah.
Do you believe it? I'm out.
No, she's military.
No, I'm not going to let you out here without sickle cell. You know that.
I know. Go ahead.
And they talk about all the shortages and the miscellaneouses and the things you did and didn't have. And I was really glad about your comment, because one of my biggest comments to people when I talk to them about sickle cell is everybody born with a white parent and a black parent don't look like me, but they carry that trait. And in 2022, we're getting a lot of that trait going into disease. So sickle cell is something that a lot of people thought was cured long ago. Sickle cell won't cure. It's a genetic disease. Until the scientists figure out how to turn the gamma chains around, a pill won't fix it. Okay? 1,135 families. That's what we got in the area. 180 other children with sickle cell disease. That's just in this area. It's not the state of Kentucky. It's not southern Indiana. We treat them all. We just got our first adult clinic in 2017.
Wow.
When they closed General Hospital in 83, 19 and over had to go to Vanderbilt. So how many of them died on the way? How many of them just didn't make it? How many of them self-medicated? You know, 17-year lifestyles. That's what our children had. Up until 2 years ago, well before that. Since we've gotten a new facility.
Now, everybody know what sickle cell is? Okay, good. Let's make sure.
It is not all black. If they just take that name off the front of it, it could get treated like a plain old disease, because that's where it is. Everywhere else in the world, you go. You know, you're sickle cell, oh, you go to the hospital, you get your blood treatments or whatever, you go home. It's no big deal. But you get here, you gotta be a drug seeker, you were sick last week, you can't be sick again. It is just one frustrating thing after another. Blood, our biggest support. Something else we can get. You can't get people to come out and give blood. I just had a drive for Juneteenth last Friday. Sent out 3,100 notices for sickle cell for blood drive. I got 50.
Wow.
In a city of 144,000 people. We got 50. Okay? It's a lifeline for sickle cell, especially a child. That's all I'm telling you. I meant to bring literature. I walked off.
Well, you
I knew you were going to get in here and get to them points. And
Yeah.
I said, well, let's give a little call while I'm here.
I love it.
I grew up on that one side of the West End. I grew up in projects. I couldn't even go to Fountain Ferry. We weren't allowed to Fountain Ferry in my town. I went to Ursuline Academy. Had nurses call me neighbor. It wasn't unusual, even back then. No, a number of times. It wasn't unusual.
But that was a Catholic church to help support blacks into the
All girls Catholic school.
right. But I'm talking about okay. But I'm talking about the mission of the churches to make sure education was important to the black community.
So, you know, it was what it was, and we grow up from it. I ended up in the military at the ripe old age of 25 because I found I had a doctor at Children's tell me, if you plan on this child getting over past the age of 2, you need to move. We don't treat this disease. You people, I think that's the phrase we use. But 25 years later, I come back, and you still wouldn't treat these people. So you put on the uniform and you get back in the fight.
Cool.
And then fight yourself.
Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for saying it.
I got it back. I've been sitting here listening. Mr. Collins, and here's my, when we talk about June 16th, and you mentioned that when the slaves were free, they had nowhere to go. I found out recently that some of them went back to Africa. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, some of them went back to Africa. But you got to remember, let's talk about this. Abraham Lincoln asked you to go back to Africa. So people don't know the history of that. When Abe Lincoln was negotiating after black people were free, because he felt black people wasn't educated enough to help America unless we were free labor. This is the president. And he met with people like Frederick Douglass. Everybody know Frederick Douglass, right? He met with people like Frederick Douglass, and Frederick Douglass, who was an abolitionist at the time, him and other black abolitionists. Think about this. A man that was a slave, that stayed in the country, that didn't want him, is advocating that black people deserve to stay in this country because we helped build it in the 1800s. Say we ain't going nowhere. They don't tell that story enough. But to answer your question, yeah, some blacks that went back because people don't realize during slavery we were always connected to Africa. See, they want to look at certain TV shows and think we just disconnected. Black people were always connected to Africa because that's where they came from. Even though they were dispersed, they kept the history, they kept the legacy of what they were doing. Even during Juneteenth, when they had the celebrations, a lot of them were celebrations dealing with the history of Africa. Because that's why our ancestors brought, you know, when you come to the museum, I'll show you everything connected to Africa that we still do today. Still do today, don't even know it. And then we talk about how many people say black people love clothes? Raise your hand. I ain't gonna make you look like a racist. Black people love clothes? I mean, raise your hand. I mean, I ain't gonna call you a racist. Okay, but you know why black people love clothes? Because we're the only people came to this country with no clothes. Historically, the only one came with no clothes. And clothing became a symbol of freedom. When they were free from the plantations, the one thing they got was clothes to go out in the world. So that's why clothing means so much to our community. Another story that people don't understand, why kids are so attached to clothes, because it's attached to us and where we came from. I thought I'd throw that in there. Anybody else? Corey, you want to say something?
Lamont, I don't want to take up any airspace when you're talking.
Well, tell them what you're doing, please.
What am I doing?
Share what we got going on.
You mean with Seeking the Shalom of the City?
Yes.
So some of you may be familiar with Crossroads Ministry, which has closed. Crossroads used to offer urban immersion, essentially retreats. And during the pandemic, I wrote a program called Seeking the Shalom of the City, 4 crossroads, 4 groups, to learn about some of the racial justice history of Louisville. Social justice, but most specifically racial justice. When Crossroads closed last year, they returned the program to me to continue to share in the world. And Lamont knows about it because Lamont was one of our featured speakers in the video, which is how I got to know him. And so this is it's a 6-week program. Thank you, Lamont, for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. And I'm in the process of getting it ready, both for me to facilitate, which I've done a few times. I and another friend will be co-facilitating it at Roots later on this year. And also, if groups want to self-facilitate, whether it's a church group or a community organization, we will have it packaged so that you can self-facilitate the program. Thank you.
When I tell you that at Roots we understand we're better together, that's just an example of it. That's what changes a community. And that gives people that say we can't work together no ammunition but to shut up. And we're trying to shut them up. We really are. Any more questions? Y'all want my website, donation card, all that stuff? You want? Well, if you don't want them, I'll give it to you. It's www.roots- like a hyphen, 101.org. You can go online, you can give online, you can come to the museum. I'm always looking for people to help with the museum as far as administrator work, as far as donations. You know, we're a small budget, but we do a lot of things. But honestly, we're always in the midst of dollars. And I know all nonprofits are. You know, I know that. So, but I still throw it out that we need funding to stay alive in what we do. So,
We need to call our council people.
yeah, that's a given. Yes, you need to call, please, if nothing else, you call Ja'Cory Arthur's office, the mayor's office, and wonder why, and ask why Roots 101 can't get in the city budget, because we got to Thursday. And we're only asking for $75,000. It's not like we're asking for millions, and I think we deserve millions. I'm just asking for 75 just to get started. That's all we want. So if you can let people know, call your alderman or councilman, whatever they're called now, and maybe some board members you know, just put it out there. I mean, for people to say they have not heard of Roots 101, I don't know where they've been. I really don't. So, but I love what we're doing here. This is, I mean, you don't see this in Louisville. You don't see where people are willing to come out and talk about race and talk about it without yelling and screaming. Even the school board is like crazy. But to talk and to understand and to listen with an open heart. So it's one thing to listen with a closed heart. But when you listen with an open heart, it changes everything. And I appreciate you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I work for the church. I'd like to know what you think about the church's role in,
And everything?
Or how can I want to be a white ally, and I want our church. It hurts me to hear people say, or to be aware of the fact that yes, the churches are the most segregated places in the morning, and I know that the church plays a role in that. But I'd like to do something about that.
I appreciate that. I mean, that's a long battle. That's 400 years of history, and leadership of churches to do just what they don't do. But Louisville has a history of some great churches and some great religious organizations. Like I said, the Catholic groups back in the 1960s or 50s, Catholic churches were unbelievably credited to helping black movement to education throughout our city. The Flagees and sending them to universities, partnering with Bellarmine University. The Catholic Church has always been the forefront of our black community. Would you agree on that? Especially for young black people. She said no. And then the Baptist churches, we have punted sometime and not done what I think we need to do. When I say Baptist, black Baptist, white Baptist, don't matter, Baptist. But what I think the role of the church is that churches need to be financially supportive of nonprofits. Every church should have a nonprofit entity within the church to help support. I don't care if it's Big Brother, Big Sisters, or whatever. Right? Today, I think it needs to be black-led nonprofits. Because there's a whole conversation about nonprofits and black-led nonprofits. First, we have very few black-led nonprofits, and the ones we have, we get very few dollars, except for 1, 2, or 3 that gets the money all the time, because there's a comfort zone with those that they deal with. But that's why I would like to see more churches get involved with nonprofits, black-led nonprofits, and I think that would change because those nonprofits are doing the work. You don't have to recreate the wheel. They're out there. I told Metro United Way, and I say a lot of things. Metro United Way, first time I went, they had a big black something. I said black something going on. And they threw black in front of it. And all the CEOs were there and everything. I got to come up. I said, oh, y'all let me here today. So I come up and I said, what? We're identifying the need for dollars. You all know the need for dollars. You already know the black community don't have dollars. You know the organizations don't have dollars. So why are you having a big banquet spending $100,000 when so many organizations can use that $100,000? So first of all, just coming here to hear you say you're looking when you know where they already are. And you do this for every year, every time Derby. If you ain't found nobody, but now you need to wake your time up. All these years they do the same thing over and over and raise money to help black businesses and nothing ever happens. Nothing. So that's my thing. I've really pushed the city to try to do more. I really have. And I will continue to do that. But to answer your question, I think church's role are to help nonprofits. Yes.
I'm Deacon Nedberg, as and I'm a member of this parish and the permanent deacon here. We've got an event next month. It's a racial justice pilgrimage. If you didn't know this, the first 4 bishops of the Archdiocese of Bardstown and Louisville were enslavers. And I have been researching the history of one of them, a woman named Mary Narcissa Frederick. And this pilgrimage on July 30th will be following her life and some of the places that she was involved in, as an opening for exploring the history of enslavement within our diocese and the role of the church, but also looking at this profound woman of faith who was a faithful Catholic during enslavement, during the Civil War, and then in the post-war period, where she became a founder of St. Augustine Parish. So I hope you'll consider joining us for that. And I have a paper I've written about her life as well, if you're interested in learning more. So, and I have flyers here if you like.
I just thought something when somebody said the church is hierarchical. The police department is also that way. Police affect everyone's lives. So just let me see a show of hands. How many people know that every division has a citizens advisory board? You as a citizen could contact your local division. The police are broken up into divisions, just like our city is broken up into districts. And you live in a division, and you have a right to be on a citizens advisory panel. They all have them, but they sort of like just do what they want them. Citizen input is you can make change from the top to the bottom, but you can make a change from the citizens. So I encourage everyone to look up what division they're in and try and join your citizens advisory board and make a difference. Bring up topics like this, because right now all we kind of talk about is who can reward for who make the most arrests, stuff like that. So citizens advisory board, you all have a right. There's one for the whole police department, but there's one for every division.
My name's Lynette Mattingly, and I'm a member of St. Bernard Church here in Louisville, and our deacon facilitated our participation in Moving Toward Oneness, which is a program supported by the Office of Multicultural Ministries as part of the Archdiocese of Louisville. A friend of mine, a graduate of Presentation Academy in 1980, Janice Mulligan, is one of the directors there. And it's a great program. What it tries to do is bring small groups from various parishes around Louisville together to talk about racism in the Catholic Church and what we can do to move forward. And so I really encourage, if your parish is interested in moving in this direction, that you reach out to Janice and the Office of Multicultural Ministries, which is out of the building next door to St. Augustine.
Thank you very much. Before we go on to more questions or whatever, we really encourage everybody that's here tonight to learn more about being a white ally, to donate to Bridge 101. We really support their work and hope that everybody here will go out and, or write a check if
it's about as much as about donations, about relationships. Yeah. Because if we can make relationships, thank you. If we can make relationships, there's so much more we can do. You guys got a full house here. So think if we start planning how we can make relationships, how many more people we can get in this door, and how much more we can change this city. I'm astonished by the amount of people here. I am. I don't know if it's the Juneteenth hangover or what, but yeah, it's the wine or what. Y'all didn't have Juneteenth wine at service or something, but yeah. Well, thank you. But anyway,
We're here because you're here, and I think there's a lot of people who are here because they met you at Group 101,
because we met you down there, and I know a lot of people have heard about it. So some of us are here because of you.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Lamont, or that you want to talk to the group about?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
How are we doing in education?
I'm sorry.
How are we doing with education?
Well, you know, that's going to be a mixed bag because, you know, they got rid of the desegregation plan. So we're going to go back to the same old way. The reason they got rid of it because they couldn't win in court. They couldn't win in court, so they knew it was going to come down. So you had a lot of black leaders that kind of made negotiations to say, hey, if it's going to come to an end, let's try to make it fair, right? So it was inevitable that it was going to happen. It wasn't like a choice. They were going to lose the court, and they was going to change it back to where it used to be. It's an open bag on what happens after here. I just don't know. They put some restrictions, like for instance, like if Manual High School was a traditional school, right? And we know Manual High School selected the kids they want. So now, even though Manual can select kids, they also have to select kids in the neighborhood. They can't just go around them anymore. But here's my thing about this. Another thing, you got to remember, there's only 4. Well, say you got Shawnee, Central. There's only 2 high schools downtown Louisville. That's it. Everything else was closed. So just from the high school perspective, kids still got to go somewhere else. So how is this going to play out? I don't know. But I know it's something our generation is going to have to deal with.
Okay.
Come to the museum, here's what happens. I would say Roots 101, and you say our house. Roots 101. Roots 101. Roots 101. Welcome to our house.
Thank you. Thank you, Lamont.